Chapter 24. Steve had nothing suitable for a holiday in Barbados. He took the train to his parents to salvage some more bits from his old bedroom, even though he'd left home almost a decade before. It would have been easier to visit Debenhams, but a trip home could kill two birds with one stone. A few months had passed since his Christmas visit, but all three of them were still raw about his time at home. It had been a disaster. His parents were forgiving and proud of their son's achievement to a certain extent. But until they saw it for themselves, they had absolutely no idea how hard he worked, and were disappointed that after months of no contact, Stephen had slept through the days and worked in the evenings. After a few of those days and nights, his dad finally spoke his mind one evening as they both reached for the kettle. If Steve knew this was how the visit was going to be, he would have thought twice about coming home at all for Christmas. He wasn't trying to be aloof from them, but his parents just didn't understand, and he struggled with their disapproval. Often, it's only when it's too late that the past becomes a thing of regret, but with the dust now settled, Steve was determined to build a better relationship with his folks. Work dominated his life, but the irony was it was the same people who'd instilled that work ethic into his core who were now castigating him for it. He figured it was all about balance, and this was his chance to restore it. "Do you just clean up after people, or is your job something more?" his mum asked, failing to hear what Steve was telling her about his 100-plus hour working weeks. So much for trying to reconcile things by being more engaged. He'd spent 2 hours talking about work despite having quickly figured out that there was no point to it. They already had it worked out, of course. "Stay calm, Steve," he thought to himself over and over. "One day they'll be proud. One day." His visit home was only for a night, but that wasn't quite enough. His parents were old school, struggling to comprehend why a company would pay for an employee's holiday for no reason other than he needed a rest. "We all need a rest, son. If my company sent me to Barbados every time I looked a little bit tired, I'd have a permanent suntan." He was sure he overheard his mum suggesting to his dad that he could be a drugs mule. His parents were both grafters and had worked all their lives in a game where nobody gave anything away for free. Using their hands and holding down a job for life in a local components factory was the extent of their shared professional horizon. They'd met there, stayed there, and after a while concluded there was no point in leaving for more of the same elsewhere. Theirs was an 8 till 4, Monday to Friday existence, the highlights of the week being an earlier finish on Friday if everyone was good, and the following week's overtime sheet. The unpredictability of the modern world was an alien universe. Steve couldn't impress on them the differences in how things now worked. They just couldn't understand. Steve loved them both, but he also loved the train journey north out of Fratton at the end of each trip home. This was the jumping-off point back into his own world with his people up in London. And this time it was just him and a bag full of beach clothes that hadn't seen sunlight since the great summer he'd spent messing around on Southsea Common before his A-level results came out. He'd get properly kitted out in Barbados and not waste any remaining time on packing. He sent Greta a courtesy text telling her where he was going to be for the next couple of weeks. She didn't reply, which was not unexpected. The no-frills communication style continued to work for them both. And this was his first grown-up holiday. He'd been on long weekends with mates and a lot of work trips that felt like holidays, especially the ones to the Balearics, but he had never been anywhere on his own just to relax. Maybe he could find time to fish from the back of a boat or learn to dive, or he could even climb something just for the hell of it, or he could just sit, watching things happen, sucking on a coconut with a big spliff on the go. Happiness was a tropical island.